So, if you want to understand the future of the global electric vehicle transition, you might be tempted to look at, Elon Musk.
Right, or like national government mandates.
Exactly. Or maybe the engineers designing those next-generation lithium-ion batteries. But to really grasp how this transition is actually happening in the real world, you shouldn't look at any of those things.
No, you really shouldn't.
You should look at Tuesday night meeting minutes from a volunteer condo board in Thornhill, Ontario. Because, well, that is exactly what we're getting into today.
It is such a remarkable case study. I mean, we're dealing with this perfect storm of finite physical resources, complex financial stakes, and the sometimes maddening reality of localized bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. So our sources for this deep dive are basically a treasure trove of raw internal documents. We've got meeting minutes, email threads, vendor proposals, budget estimates.
All the really glamorous stuff.
Oh, absolutely. And this is all from the Electric Vehicle Charging Station Project Committee at the Minto Water Garden Condominium, or specifically York Region Standard Condominium Corporation number 1268.
Right, and the reason this matters to you listening is that we so often hear about these sweeping national policies regarding the shift to EVs, the grand visions of an electrified future.
The big picture.
Exactly. But this source material, it just strips away the gloss. It shows us the exact friction points where those grand visions basically collide with reality.
Yeah.
I mean, this is how everyday people are navigating intensely complex infrastructure challenges, day by day, email by email.
So the mission for this deep dive is to extract the critical lessons from this single condo's journey. We're going to uncover what it actually takes on the ground to retrofit existing infrastructure for a technology it was literally never designed to handle.
Which is no small feat.
Not at all. We'll explore the technical hurdles, the vendor negotiations, and the surprisingly intense legal roadblocks involved in just, trying to get a charging cable to a concrete parking spot.
It's a whole thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, let's unpack this. Where does this committee's journey actually begin?
Well, it starts with a very formal, necessary step. The Condo Board officially approves a 5-member volunteer committee to investigate and plan for AV charging.
Right.
The documents introduce us to 3 unit owners and 2 board members. So we've got Cyril, Stephen, Alina, Roberto, and Daniel.
And what I love is that instead of just guessing what the building might need, they actually start with a survey to gather concrete data.
Which is smart.
Super smart. So according to the April 18th, 2022 minutes, 31 respondents reported that they plan to install an EV charger within the next 2 years.
That's a lot of cars.
It is. 31 cars needing daily high-capacity charges. That is a massive spike in localized electricity demand.
And that number instantly forces them to confront this really harsh physical reality regarding the building's infrastructure.
Right, the power limit.
Exactly. The entire condo corporation have a maximum electrical load capacity of 1,600 AMPs.
Yeah, I read that number in the documents, and to put it in perspective for you, it's like hosting a dinner party where 31 people suddenly want to plug in a heavy-duty microwave at the exact same time, but you only have one kitchen circuit.
That is a great analogy.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating here is how this single number, this 1,600 AMP limit, dictates every subsequent decision they make.
Because it's a hard limit.
Totally.
Right.
To understand the gravity of this, a typical single-family home might have 100 or maybe 200 AMP service panel for everything.
Like heating, lights, all the appliances.
Right. But this entire condominium building, with all its residential units, its elevators, its heating and cooling systems, the common areas, the whole thing has a hard ceiling of 1,600 AMPs.
Wow.
And a typical level 2 EV charger can draw up to 40 AMPs.
Oh.
So if 31 residents all come home at 16 p.m. and plug in their cars, that could pull over 1,200 AMPs just for vehicles alone.
The math just fails almost instantly. Like the building would literally go dark.
Oh, absolutely. They would trip the main breakers for the entire structure.
Which would be a disaster.
A total disaster. And the alternative is undergoing this multi-million-dollar infrastructure upgrade with the local utility company to bring more power into the building from the municipal grid.
Which I'm assuming is completely financially ruinous for a single condo.
Completely out of the question.
So they are dealing with a finite pie of electricity, and they have to figure out how to slice it up without anyone going hungry. Or, in this case, without blowing out the building's transformers,
Right.
which means they can't just let residents hire their own electricians to run wires from their personal meters to their parking spots. It'd be chaos.
Utter chaos. They need a centralized intelligence system to manage that power draw.
So, with a finite power supply and 31 eager owners waiting, they call in the vendors to solve the puzzle.
Yes. The committee brings in 4 different vendors to present solutions in the condo's second-floor media room.
Ah, the famous media room. We will get back to that.
We definitely will. So you have SWTCH, EV Direct, EnerSavings, and Simply Electrical. And to keep things from devolving into chaos, the committee makes a very strategic administrative move.
Yeah, this was brilliant.
They assign one specific committee member as the single point of contact or liaison for each vendor.
Right, so Daniel takes SWTCH, Alina handles EV Direct, Roberto is on EnerSavings, and Steven takes Simply Electrical.
Which is so smart because it prevents the vendors from playing committee members against each other or just spamming the entire group with aggressive sales pitches.
It's basically a shield. So let's look at the contrasting approaches these vendors pitch to solve this 1600 AMP problem, because they are fundamentally different philosophies.
They really are. Let's start with Simply Electrical, who is represented by Mike Spence. His approach was fairly traditional. He advocated using the building's existing electrical panel and essentially strapping new technology onto it.
Kind of like a patch.
Yeah, exactly. He proposed adding a smart meter to handle the billing and load calculations and running Wi-Fi down into the underground garage to communicate with the chargers.
And what was the price tag on that?
The estimated cost for this baseline infrastructure was around $54,000.
Okay, $54,000. But then you have EV Direct, represented by Manny Alter. And he pitches a totally different philosophy.
Night and day.
He tells them to abandon the existing panel entirely. He wants to replace it with a brand new smart panel and physically relocate it to a more central spot in the garage.
Right.
And his estimate comes in much lower at about $32,000.
Which brings up a classic infrastructure debate. Simply Electrical wants to minimize the invasive nature of the work by using what's already there.
Which ironically drives up the cost because the existing panel isn't optimized for this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
While EV Direct wants to just tear out the old system and centralize a new one. And the reason centralizing a smart panel drops the price to $32,000 is because it drastically reduces the physical distance to the parking spots.
Meaning less copper wire?
A lot less. High-capacity copper wire is incredibly expensive. By moving the hub to the center of the garage, the spokes reaching out to each car are much shorter.
Makes sense.
Plus, a true smart panel acts like a traffic cop. It doesn't just passively let electricity flow, it actively monitors the building's total draw.
Oh, so it talks to the system.
Yes. If the building approaches that 1600 AMP limit, the panel dynamically throttles down the power going to the cars. So it might take a bit longer for a car to charge, but the building stays lit.
Okay, so you have option A for $54,000 and option B for $32,000. But then Jonathan Ward from EnerSavings enters the chat.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, he proposes an ED-ready model that involves a rental agreement. And his pitch to the committee is literally zero upfront cost to the condo corporation.
The ultimate disruptor pitch in any infrastructure negotiation.
Wait, I mean, if I am sitting on this volunteer committee and I'm staring down a $54,000 bill from one guy and another company is offering to do this massive electrical retrofit for $0 upfront, why isn't it an instant win for the free option?
Right, it sounds too good to be true.
If you're listening to this and wondering why they don't just take the free infrastructure, there has to be a catch.
The catch is the difference between short-term capital expenditure and long-term operational expenditure.
CapEx versus OpEx.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, the EnerSavings model means the condo board doesn't have to empty its bank account today. It solves the immediate capital problem.
But
that $0 upfront cost means the physical charging equipment and the infrastructure powering it is effectively owned by the vendor and rented to the building.
Ah.
The residents who use it will pay higher monthly management fees to that vendor in perpetuity to subsidize that initial free installation.
Wow. So the committee is forced to weigh the immediate relief of a free installation against basically saddling their neighbors with perpetual monthly fees that could eventually cost them way more than the $54,000 would have.
Exactly. And the vendors are highly aware of this friction. The sales tactics we see in these emails definitely reflect that pressure.
Oh man, the follow-up email from Mike Spence at Simply Electrical is just a masterclass in applying pressure.
It really is aggressive.
He emails Cyril and Steven, offering a special discount on the administration fee, dropping it to $210 a year per resident. He offers bulk installation discounts. He offers to personally submit all the government grant applications on the condo's behalf.
That's just a huge headache saved for the committee.
Right. He even throws in a free charging station for the visitor parking section.
He is attempting to overwhelm their decision-making process with added value.
But there is a hard condition. He explicitly states in the email that they only get these additions if the service agreement is awarded to his company by July 11th. He creates a rigid, artificial deadline.
Yeah, it's a highly effective tactic used in corporate sales.
Yeah.
Committees naturally move slowly. They want to deliberate, review, seek second opinions.
Whack their feet.
Exactly. So by imposing a hard deadline attached to financial incentives, the vendor forces the committee to bypass their natural slowdown mechanism. They have to make a choice out of fear of losing the discount.
Now, if it were just a matter of picking a tech spec and a price tag, they might have actually hit that July 11th deadline. But as you see in the documents, they suddenly run headfirst into a wall of condo law.
This is where the bureaucracy really shines.
The source documents include extensive notes from a Canadian Condominium Institute webinar titled Going Electric. And the legal tension they uncover here is wild.
The central legal issue revolves around the condo's reserve fund.
Right.
For context, a reserve fund is a legally mandated savings account. Condo corporations collect a portion of monthly fees and put it into this fund specifically to pay for major, unexpected repairs down the road, like a roof replacement or fixing a cracked foundation.
But there is a very strict rule governing that money, Section 93(2) of the Condominium Act.
Right. That section dictates that reserve funds can strictly only be used for the major repair or replacement of existing assets.
Existing assets.
Yes. The underlying philosophy of the law is to protect the residents. It stops a rogue condo board from taking the emergency roof repair money and using it to, build a gold-plated fountain in the lobby.
Right. The money can only be used to replace what is already there.
Exactly.
Which creates a massive legal bottleneck for our committee. Because a brand new, highly sophisticated electric vehicle smart panel is not a replacement of an existing asset.
No, it's a net new addition.
It's an upgrade.
Right. And under a strict reading of Section 93(2), they are legally prohibited from using their own savings to pay for this infrastructure.
That is incredibly frustrating.
It is. The provincial government eventually recognized that this decades-old law was inadvertently stalling the transition to green energy across thousands of buildings. So they introduced new regulations, specifically Sections 24.2 to 24.7 of Regulation 4801.
Okay, a patch for the law.
Essentially, yes. These were designed to exempt EV installations from some of these strict reserve fund rules.
But even with the new regulations, it is so legally murky that the webinar notes explicitly tell the committee, you should confirm with the corporation's legal counsel if an upgrade would qualify.
Yeah, talk to a lawyer.
Think about the reality of that for a moment. You are a volunteer doing unpaid work for your community, trying to modernize your building. And suddenly you're analyzing statutory law and consulting corporate lawyers just to get permission to spend your own community's money.
The legal ambiguity adds months to timelines and significant costs in legal fees, which is basically a hidden tax on the energy transition.
Totally.
And this legal headache is immediately compounded by an inescapable issue of physics, the 150-foot rule.
Oh man, the 150-foot rule. So the documents reveal this brutal reality about underground parking garages. When you run power cables from the electrical panel to an individual parking spot, the voltage begins to drop over distance.
Right, it's just the nature of electricity.
To compensate for that drop over long runs, you have to use thicker, heavier copper wire. And once you go beyond 150 feet from the panel, the cost of the wire required literally doubles.
Which creates an immediate, localized equity problem. The cost for a resident to join the EV transition is entirely dictated by the arbitrary geographic location of their assigned parking spot.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Why is this the board's problem to solve? I mean, if I buy a tent house unit, I pay a premium for the view. If I buy a unit with a massive terrace, I pay more for the square footage. So if I just happen to be assigned a parking spot 200 feet away from the electrical panel, shouldn't I just have to pay the extra $4,000 for the extra copper wire? Why does the committee feel the need to equalize this?
That's a fair question. But it comes down to politics. If the cost disparity is too high, the entire project collapses.
How so?
Well, if the people in the far corners of the garage feel they are being financially penalized, they will just vote against the infrastructure project at the annual general meeting. Furthermore, a condo board has a fiduciary duty to act in the collective best interest of all owners. Creating a system where one neighbor pays $3,000 and the neighbor 3 spots down pays $7,000 breeds intense resentment and threatens the political stability of the board itself.
Which brings us back to Manny Alter from EV Direct.
Exactly.
This is exactly why he was pushing to rip out the old panel and move a new one to the center of the garage. It wasn't just about the technology, it was a physical solution to a political problem.
Precisely. By centralizing the hub, he minimizes the number of parking spots that cross that 150-foot threshold, equalizing the cost and keeping the peace among neighbors.
The engineering solution is driven entirely by the need for social cohesion. That is so cool.
It really is.
But okay, this brings us to my absolute favorite part of these source documents.
I know where you're going with this.
We've been discussing massive structural concepts, right? Statutory law, fiduciary duty, load capacities, $50,000 budgets. But then you read the actual email chains between the committee members, and it is just the most mundane, relatable reality of administrative work.
The emails really ground the entire project in the day-to-day friction of human collaboration.
Like, you see Cyril fighting with the condo's online amenity booking system because it requires a strict 2-day lead time to reserve the media room.
Natural.
And he's desperately trying to lock down dates for the vendor presentations before they lose their momentum.
Yep.
There is a whole separate email chain where they are just trying to figure out how to register the vendor's license plates with Carrie, the property manager, so the vendors don't get their cars towed while they are upstairs pitching their $50,000 solutions.
It's hilarious, but we see the very real challenges of scheduling volunteer time, too. I mean, Alina has to miss a crucial meeting with 2 of the vendors simply because she was teaching a class.
Real life gets in the way. And the crowning jewel of these emails, my absolute favorite, is Cyril sending a message asking, who is the person to walk me through setting up the overhead projector to make sure that the equipment is in working order?
Yes.
They are debating the future of green energy infrastructure, and he literally just needs someone, maybe Jason from maintenance, to show him how to turn the projector on so the vendors can display their PowerPoint slides.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this is how large-scale systemic change actually occurs.
Right.
We tend to imagine that the transition to sustainable energy is happening smoothly, in sleek, futuristic boardrooms with seamless technology.
Like a sci-fi movie.
Exactly. The reality is that the energy transition is happening because volunteers like Cyril and Alina are willing to struggle with clunky booking software, figure out who holds the keys to the projector, and debate complex legal statutes on their Tuesday nights.
It is the unglamorous, often frustrating hard work that actually changes the physical world around us. And honestly, despite all these hurdles, the 1600 AMP limit, the legal ambiguity, the aggressive sales tactics, this committee is functioning incredibly well.
They really are.
I mean, so many community groups just collapse under this kind of pressure.
They are a model of efficiency. The source documents provide a clear blueprint for how to manage a complex, multi-stakeholder project.
So what does this all mean? Let's extract that value for you, the listener. Because whether you are running a PTA, managing a corporate task force, or sitting on your own condo board, these documents provide a literal playbook for success. What are the key operational lessons we can pull from Minto Water Garden?
Well, the first lesson is to define a clear mandate and set achievable objectives from day one. They didn't just say, hey, let's get some chargers. They specifically sought to determine the short, mid, and long-term needs of the building.
Right. And the second lesson is to operate like a structured corporate department. By assigning specific committee members as the dedicated point of contact for specific vendors, they prevented miscommunication, guarded against vendor manipulation, and avoided vendor fatigue.
Vendor fatigue is huge. That's where a company just gives up because the committee is too disorganized to deal with.
Exactly. And the third lesson is their reliance on hard data. They use surveys to find out exactly what their community needed rather than just guessing.
Knowing that exactly 31 people plan to install chargers within 2 years allowed them to negotiate with those vendors from a position of absolute strength. They knew their leverage.
Yeah.
And setting these clear administrative boundaries is crucial. It isolates the chaos of the project. It frees up the main condo board of directors and the property management company to do their regular jobs, which is managing the building's daily operations.
Right. The documents explicitly note that this structured committee approach avoids the dropped balls that inevitably happen when a massive project is just vaguely assigned to a general management team without clear, dedicated responsibilities. So the real hero of the electric vehicle revolution might not be the engineers designing the aerodynamic cars or the politicians writing the infrastructure grants. The real hero might just be highly communicative, rigidly structured administrative organization.
It is a sobering thought, but a true one. You really cannot scale advanced technology without a robust administrative framework to support its deployment.
So let's bring this all together. We started with a residential building where a few people simply wanted a way to charge their cars.
A simple request.
And we ended up navigating a hard physical limit of 1,600 AMPs, analyzing vendor proposals that swung wildly from $0 upfront to $54,000, unearthing legal bottlenecks regarding decades-old reserve fund legislation, and dealing with the absolute drama of booking the second floor media room without getting a car towed.
It is a phenomenal journey. It perfectly encapsulates the hidden complexities of modernizing our existing living spaces. Every single step requires negotiation, legal interpretation, and compromise.
So the next time you park in a concrete underground garage and you see a sleek electric vehicle charger glowing on the wall, I want you to appreciate the massive hidden iceberg of effort that made it possible. Think about the meetings, the legal checks, the fierce financial debates, and the late-night volunteer hours. Someone had to fight with the building's projector just to get that thing installed.
It truly is a monument to unseen collective effort.
But there's a final thought I want to leave you to mull over, something that builds on everything we've uncovered today. We have spent this entire time looking at the monumental effort, the stress, the legal maneuvering, and the sheer cost it takes just to install this infrastructure today.
Yeah.
But technology moves incredibly fast. The standards for charging speeds, load management, and wireless communication are constantly evolving. What happens in 10 or 15 years when these newly installed smart panels, the Wi-Fi hubs in the garage, and the chargers themselves become entirely obsolete?
Oh, wow.
When it all just becomes heavy, expensive e-waste bolted to a concrete wall? Will a brand new committee of volunteers have to navigate the exact same clunky booking systems, the exact same statutory reserve fund debates, and those exact same 150-foot wire limits all over again just to rip it all out and start from scratch?
It really raises a profound question about the permanence of our infrastructure solutions. Are we genuinely building the foundation for the future, or are we just exhausting ourselves preparing for the next inevitable upgrade cycle?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions about the hidden systems around you, and we will see you next time.